NCAA basketball totals for Tuesday, January 3rd. This segment where we look at the totals set by odds makers on an NCAA basketball game. We try to beat that number either over or under the total. And we're going to talk about some totals here today. We got a huge slate of games out there. We're just going to look at three, but a lot of really good matchups. We also have our NBA segment out there as well, which covers the same type of topic and context. Looking at the totals, don't forget to check out also, as always, SBR. Don't forget to look at our Sportsbook review for all the odds and numbers and the Sportsbook sign-up bonuses, all that good stuff at SBR. Blacklist as well, Sportsbooks to avoid, so be sure to check that out. Let's get into some totals. All right, here we go. First one up we got is Arkansas and Tennessee. Oddsmakers have it at 155.5. That is huge, and I'm going over. I'm going to go over that total because both these teams are super fast. Now with Rick Barnes now at Tennessee, big win at Texas A&M, by the way. I expect for this to really be an up-tempo game. I mean, you look at their last couple totals, even, when Barnes wasn't there, you're talking about oddsmakers had him at 156, 162 prior to that, the last couple times they matched up. And I don't think that's really going to change that much today. I mean, let's look at their statistics here. As we look at their scoring offense and their defense, too, they both give up quite a bit. So we look at Arkansas right now, they're averaging 82.7 points per game, and they're allowing just over 70 points. Tennessee, they're only allowing 71.8 points per game, but I'll talk about their tempo in a second. That's I had that messed up. Tennessee is averaging 77.3 points per game. That's still not a ton compared to Arkansas, but they're allowing just 71.8 points per game. Sorry, I got my tongue twisted on that one. But the tempo is what I wanted to talk about with Tennessee. That was the main point. You're talking about a Tennessee team that gets up about 59 attempts per game. And on the other side, they allow about 58 attempts per game. So that's pretty fast. And what's going to be really fast about that is the fact that Arkansas really loves to get out up and down the floor, averaging 62 attempts per game and giving up over 60. So, on top of the fact that the tempo is going to be so fast, is both these teams can flat out score. You got an Arkansas team shooting over 46% from the floor. They're shooting 37% from distance. Tennessee, they're shooting 44% from the floor. Not that great, but they do shoot about 47% on their two-point shots. And this game is at Tennessee, so I expect them to score. I think they're going to be able to put up quite a few points. Arkansas defensively, they've been okay percentage-wise, but neither of these teams, rank in the top 50 of any defensive category. Tennessee gives up their fair share of points. So does Arkansas. So I look for this to be an absolute track meet, especially, back to that scoring. You're talking about two teams that can really, score the basketball, and the tempo's going to be there. They share the ball. They move the ball. I really like for this to get over that 155.5. I think it's going to get close to 160. Should be up and down all night with those two teams. Something I want to mention really quick also when we look at them and their previous matchups. Now, Rick Barnes, like I mentioned, from Texas, he's there at Tennessee now. The last couple times, the oddsmakers had the totals really high, and they didn't get there. You're talking about 75-65 their last matchup, and the matchup before that was 85-67, and the matchup before that was 80-72. If we go backwards, actually, something I wanted to mention before we move on, back in the past 10 years, up until even further than that, about 10 years. 2008 was the last time they were actually over this total. So odds makers, I think, are on top of this, setting it really high, and I think they're going to get there in this matchup. All right, next one up. Sorry about that mistake on the scoring defense and offense. That just happens sometimes when I'm going a little bit too fast. My mouth goes ahead of my brain. All right, next one up we got is St. Joseph's and Rhode Island. Two good defensive teams. Rhode Island especially. They're an underrated defensive team. Odds makers have it at 140. This one I'm going under. I think it's going to be a little bit defensive battle here. Let's take a look at this. So last couple times they match up, oddsmakers have the total. So right now today, it's at, what did I just say, 140. It's at 140 right now, and it hasn't moved since last I checked it about 30 minutes ago. St. Joseph's and Rhode Island. Oddsmakers had their totals at 140.5 and 139 the last two times they matched up. The last time they played, 64-55 final and a 72-67 final. They did not reach this total, and I don't think they do it today. You're talking about two good, solid defensive teams. Let's look at some of these stats so you can see what I'm talking about as my computer is pulling this up. But they're both very well-coached team. That A-10, man, there's some good teams in there, and I think they get overlooked a little bit, but that's a really tough conference. Rhode Island right now and St. Joe's are both averaging over 70 points per game. Very good, but let's look at them defensively. Rhode Island's allowing just 64.5 points per game. Very, very good numbers. St. Joe's not that great at 72, but their defensive percentages are not bad at all. They're allowing opponents to shoot just 43% from the floor and 46.8% on their two-point shots. Good defense by Martelli. Rhode Island's been great across the board defensively. They're allowing opponents to shoot just 41%. Very solid. And offensively, neither of these teams are really lights out, especially St. Joe's. I think this is a little bit of a down year for St. Joe's. Excuse me. They're shooting just 42.8% from the floor. They're going to struggle scoring tonight against Rhode Island. Rhode Island's a bit better at 46.5%. That ranks 71st in the country. But neither team shoots the three particularly well. They both rank outside the top 200 teams in that category, and both their defense and they're well coached. So I like for this to stay under 140 with two coaches that can, coach some defense. Rhode Island was one of the best defensive teams in the A10 last year statistically, and I think they're going to be there again this year. So look for Rhode Island to hold St. Joseph to a reasonable number and for this to stay under that 140. All right, next one up. Great matchup here too. Kansas State at Kansas. Bruce Weber, Bill Self, former Illinois guys matching up again. Let's look at some of their past matchups here. Now, Kansas State goes a lot slower than Kansas. This game's in Allen Fieldhouse, which is Kansas. Now, oddsmakers said the last total at 140. The one prior to that, 143, 144. But their last totals, pretty good scoring. You have last game they matched up was a tournament, Big 12 tournament, 85-63 win by Kansas. So that gets us well over the total. Then he had a 72-63 one prior to that. And I think that's more of what we're going to see today. So 141.5. That actually kind of looks a little bit low, but there's a good reason for it because both these teams, especially Kansas, is actually really underrated on the defensive side. Kansas State's got great defensive numbers. I'll tell you about that right now. My computer's acting a little bit slow. That's why I'm pausing on some things as I'm trying to get to a page with all the statistics. Kansas State right now has been solid scoring, 75.5 points per game. Kansas, we know they're great, 86.5 points per game. Kansas is allowing 68.5 points per game. That's really good. Kansas State, though, like I talked about, 58.8 points per game. They're ranked 7th in the country in scoring defense. Very tough task for them to hold Kansas down at home, but they go at a really slow tempo. Bruce Weber loves to spread the floor out, move the ball around the perimeter, and just kind of control the clock, even though, the clock's a little bit quicker now than several years back. Now they got that 30-second range. Kansas State, very efficient, averaging 48.1% from the floor, but Kansas allows opponents to shoot under 40%. Kansas, they shoot 51% from the floor, but Kansas State allows opponents to shoot just 38%. So now it's a question of who's going to control the tempo. Well, Kansas State being on the road, they definitely don't want to get up and down with Kansas. So I think they're going to try really hard to play tough defense, hit the boards, and contain possession. Not have turnovers. It's easier said than done, but that 141.5, it looks tempting to go over, but I don't think they get there. Kansas State goes pretty slow, and Kansas, although they do get up some pretty good tempo, they don't allow a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and back under the total, this 141.5 with Kansas State and Kansas. Two, again, much like that Rhode Island St. Joseph one, two really well-coached teams. I think the focus is going to be on defense tonight. All right. Once again, here we go. We got Arkansas, Tennessee over the 155.5, and what I think is going to be a really fast game affair. Very high total set by oddsmakers, but these two teams have not gone over this total set since 2008. I think they do it today. St. Joseph, Rhode Island under the 140. Always a good battle with these two in the A10. Kansas State and Kansas under the 141.5, and what I think is going to be a little more controlled pace defensive battle. Those are our 3 NCAA college basketball picks on the totals for this Tuesday, and I wish you luck on your picks today.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.